We're going to go ahead and dive in. I know that we are going to have some people that will continue to join us, and yet I want to make sure that I always love to start on time and end on time. So welcome, Maddie. Today, we're going to do a couple of things. We've been, as a group, reading Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I'm going to go through some of the information around habit 4 today. I know that with you just stepping in, this isn't going to be something that you're familiar with, and yet feel free to take notes, and that might be a book that you want to pick up because Deb has also been reading that book as well. And then we're going to go into we are actually calling the form Your Future from Vision to Reality. And in that, we're actually going to start taking stock of where we are in what we call the 7 circles of life. And then where does that go for the GPS? And then how does that break down into, we typically talk about a 4-1-1, which is 4 weeks, 1 month, and 1 year. Well, this we're going to break down into 12 weeks. And what is the thing that we're going to do each week that's going to lead us to that goal? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So I'm going to share my screen. There we go. And this is what we're looking at today around that 7 habits of highly effective people. It is habit 4. Now, some of the material that I'm sharing with you today is from Stephen Covey's. He has a workbook around the 7 habits. And so we're going to dig deeper into that habit 4 today. And it's all around creating a win-win agreement. And so they actually start out with, and I thought this was just super powerful, in all areas of life, effectiveness is largely achieved through the cooperative efforts of 2 or more people. Marriages and other partnerships are interdependent realities, and yet people often approach these relationships with an independent mentality. So if we think about relationships and we think about working as teams or admin and team leaders, this all comes into play. Going into this is the interdependent model. We want to make sure that we are creating win-win and not win-lose, lose-lose, or lose-win situations. Win-win sees life as a cooperative arena, not a competitive one. Win-win is a frame of mind and heart that constantly seeks mutual benefit in all human interactions. And win-win agreements, win-win means agreements or solutions are mutually beneficial and satisfying. So a person or an organization of any type that approaches conflicts with a win-win attitude possesses 3 characteristic traits. Now, at Keller Williams, we're very big on the win-win. So this is some of the insight of where that came from. So 1 is integrity, conforming to your true feelings, values, and commitments. 2 is maturity, expressing your ideas and feelings with courage and consideration for the ideas and feelings of others. And 3, abundance mentality, believing that there is plenty for everyone. So those are some of the key characters in the foundation of a win-win. Now, so when we're developing that win-win paradigm, we want to look at that and realize where we are and where are some maybe opportunities for us. So when we look at developing that win-win paradigm, many people think in terms of either or. So I'm either nice or I'm tough. However, in win-win, it requires you to be both. So to go for win-win, you not only have to be empathetic, you have to be confident, considerate, and sensitive. You also have to be brave. So to do that, to achieve that balance between courage and consideration, that is the essence of real maturity and is fundamental to that win-win paradigm that we want to, where our intent is to achieve. So if you're high on courage and low on consideration, you're going to think win-lose. So this is an example, right? So if we're high on courage, we're low on consideration, it's just about me. Well, we're going to be focusing here in that win-lose category. You'll have the courage of your convictions, and yet you won't be very considerate of others. You'll borrow strengths from your position and power, or from your credentials, your role, your seniority, or your affiliations, right? So that's where we've got to be, where do we range here? Now, high courage and high consideration, right? They're both essential to that win-win relationship. It's the balance of the two that is the mark of real maturity. If you have it, you can listen and you can empathically understand, and you can also courageously confront. So one of the things that we're going to ask to do as part of maybe a homework exercise is you're going to choose 2 of your most important relationships, and you're going to evaluate the ability to apply the win-win approach. A great example of this came several years ago. I was listening to a talk, Kristen Bell. Everybody probably knows her, but she's a famous actress, right? She was talking about when her and her husband, Dax Shepard, he's another famous actor, when they were arguing. And she said when they first were together, they would have a fight, and she would, yell and scream, walk out the door, slam the door, walk out of the house, and that's the way their fights were. And if we think of that in terms of this, so that was a win-lose, right? And really maybe even a lose-lose. So and so Dax said one day, he said, that doesn't work for me. I'm not going to be in a relationship that somebody walks out on me and leaves the house every time. You don't know how to fight. And she was like, and it was interesting to watch this because Kristen was like, what do you mean? I'm a good fighter. He said, you leave, you exit. We don't actually come to a solution because you need high courage and high consideration. Now, Dax having this conversation took something. It took courage. She maybe isn't going to like what he says. Maybe this leads to another fight. So he'd have high courage, and he had to have high consideration because he didn't just leave it there. He went in to say, how can we come to a solution? So what part of their solution was, the next time she could leave the room, not the house. And then eventually it got to where she wouldn't leave the room. And then it got to where they could actually have discourse. And so their relationship got better and better, and it continued to become that win-win. Now, I know because we're talking business, but we also look at maps. We this is the whole person. We can't separate your personal and your business. This is the whole person. And think about this in terms of whether you're the admin or the agent. For us to have a win-win relationship, we both have to be high on courage and high on consideration. Because if we go back to what is a win-win relationship, it's integrity, conforming to your true feelings, values, and commitments. It's maturity, expressing your ideas and feelings with courage and consideration for the ideas and feelings of others. And it's the abundance mentality, believing that there is enough or plenty for everyone. So we go back to what I'm going to ask that for those of you that want to really take this on is choose 2 of your most important relationships, and you're going to evaluate the ability to apply that win-win approach. Now, you might decide to do a personal relationship, and you might decide to do a business relationship, or 2 personals or 2 business. Completely up to you. This is an exercise to start this. Now, when you evaluate that relationship, so what I would say right now, write down 2 names. So we have 2 people that we're going to evaluate the relationship. And we're evaluating this relationship, each relationship on ourself, on our balance between courage and consideration, right? For example, if you consider yourself low on, one second, let's say that you consider yourself in that relationship, maybe you consider yourself low on courage but high on, low on courage, but high on consideration, you'll put an X in that corresponding quadrant, right? So if you consider yourself high on consideration and low on courage in that relationship, you would put yourself an X in this box. If you consider yourself high courage and high consideration in that particular relationship, you would put an X in that corresponding box, right? Maybe you're on high on courage and low on high on courage, and yet you're low on consideration, you would put an X in that box. So you guys get that, right? Feel free to unmute yourself or type into the chat box, and mine's going to monitor that if you have questions around this exercise. Now what you're going to do, once you've identified, take one relationship at a time, identify how you show up there. Then you're going to determine if you're out of balance in either of these relationships. Consider the elements of a win-win character: maturity and courage balanced with consideration and integrity. Then you're going to decide what you might do to improve that situation and record, and then write down your decision, right? So we're going to rate it. We're going to see where we are. Then we're going to decide what we might do to improve the situation, and you're just going to write it down, right? So it's really a simple exercise. And then this is going to be the fun part. You're going to do an exercise where we call a changing places. Okay, so this is what this is going to look like. And I'm reading the instructions right out of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People workbook. So select one relationship for which you want to develop a win-win agreement, and you're going to follow these steps. You're going to put yourself in the other person's place and write down explicitly how you think that person understands the situation. Sometimes what's really beneficial, we call this the chair exercise. Let's say that you and your admin have a different view of what needs to happen or a certain way. Or maybe this is your spouse or significant other. Get out of whatever chair when you're doing this and sit in another chair and take on, like, okay, I'm no longer Olivia, I'm my significant other. From his chair, right? Change chairs. From that chair, how could that person see it? And just write that down. That way you're really, your goal is not to assume that you know, it really is to go, what could it be? And write explicitly down how you think that other person understands the situation. Okay. Then again, if you're utilizing the chair exercise, then you're going to get back into your chair, and you're going to write the results that would constitute a win for you. Okay. So that's the 2 pieces. So how do you think that other person sees it? You're being that person. And then from your perspective, write the results, what would constitute a win for you. Then if you really want to show your courage, because this is really where rubber meets the road, you're going to approach that other person and ask if he or she would be willing to communicate until you both reach a point of agreement and a mutually beneficial solution. Okay. So any questions around identifying your relationships and the win-win opportunity? Okay. So these are some win-win opportunity questions that I've written out. Feel free to take a snapshot of these. So what important relationship or issue would you like to improve or resolve by using the win-win approach? Do you have an abundance mentality, everyone can win, or a scarcity mentality, you must win? What do you think will happen if you allow yourself to act in a win-lose manner? What do you think will happen if you approach this relationship or issue with a win-win attitude? What benefits could you foresee? Number 5, what will you do to ensure that you reap the benefits of using a win-win approach? And number 6, When will you take these actions? So feel free to take a screenshot of these so that you can continue that conversation around that win-win piece. And then this next piece that I'm going to share with you, and then we're going to move into the what we've been working on with the 12-week year and our business plan. These are some guidelines that you want to ask yourself. So when we come here, actually, I'm going to go here. So this is your win-win agreement checklist. Now, this is a checklist I'm going to have mine type up, and we'll update it and put it in our forms. When you get ready to have that win-win agreement, you're with that other person. You might ask yourself, this might be something that you bring into that conversation, say, okay, what is our desired results? Is the outcome defined? Ask that person, are you clear? What do you see as the outcome? Make sure that everyone, right, is the same outcome. Is it mutually beneficial? If it is, mark it off. We've got the desired result. We know what our desired result is. Guidelines, have I identified the rules, policies, or specifications that I should follow? So for instance, in the example that I used with Dax and Kristen, hey, you can't leave the house when you're mad, right? Then, you can't sling this at me and then leave, right? So what are those guidelines? Resources, have I identified the necessary human, financial, technical resources? Are they available? Sometimes it might mean we need to go to a professional, right? Accountability, have I identified what will be reported and when and to whom it will be reported? Now, if you think about this in terms of, Covey talks about this in the 7 Habits. If you remember, and if you haven't read this, write down page 174. It's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People on page 174. He describes that when he's talking to his son about how to clean the yard, and how, he said there was a desired result, right? Look, son, I said, see how our neighbor's yard is green and clean. That's the desired result. Then he went on to resources. What would you do? I'd turn on the sprinklers, right? That's a resource. Guideline. Okay, now let's talk about clean. What does clean mean? And they got really clear on what clean meant by even giving examples. And then accountability. So when will we check it? That's right, twice a week. And then consequences. So I did it, right? So that's an example of, even in our business, right? Do we understand the desired results? Do we have guidelines, resources, accountability, and the consequences? So I'd love to hear from somebody maybe that is like Sylvia. I know this made a big impact with you. When you were reading through that win-win agreement with in the Habit 4, anything that jumped out at you, anything you'd like to share, maybe you've already done, or how that's impacted some of the things that that you're just working on, whether it's well, I'll stop.
Yeah, no, many things, both in personal life and in business, of course. But I mean, if you don't have a win-win mentality, it's going to be really hard to achieve the goals that you want to achieve, either with your spouse, with your partner, with whatever your situation is, right? But the same goes with listing appointments. If you don't think that you're going to go and win it, why even go? Right? So, I mean, many things. This book has really impacted me. And I finished Habit 5, and I need to go back and read Habit 3 again, and 2 and 3 again. I think they're 1, 2, and 3, the most important ones. I mean, all of them, but Habit 3, being able to, the bank accounts, what you put in, huge. I can go on for hours, but I'm not going to, of course, take the time. But definitely, highly encourage everyone to take the time and do it as a reflection on a personal life level, because it's going to definitely impact the business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love what you share about, like, if you think about, because we all we think about being relationship in our business, and growing that moat around the database. So when we're going into a listing agreement, even, right, if we look at it from the business angle, we go in it from a listing agreement. What does the final outcome look like? Like, that would be a really good piece when you walk into that listing agreement, because we might have one idea and the seller may have another idea. So is the outcome defined? Does everyone involved envision the same outcome? Right? Because you might have some sellers that their outcome is, I want the most money. Another seller might be, I just need it gone because I'm about to, I've got to be here, or there's something else more important. So, and then is it mutually beneficial? Because the same thing, we talk about that win-win. Let's say, is it mutually beneficial? Our expectations aren't in alignment, or maybe the way that they approach the situation, it's a lose-win, right? Maybe they have maybe they have high consideration and low courage, or you have high consideration and low courage. And so when they want you to do it at a percentage that doesn't make sense, you end up settling here instead of continuing to work on it until it's a win-win, right? So even in that listing presentation, this shows up. Guidelines. Have I identified the rules, policy, or specifications that I should follow? So, Mr. and Ms. Seller, did you get the pre-qual? Have you had an opportunity, or not the pre-qual, I apologize, the pre-listing packet? Have you had an opportunity to review that? There are some things that, because rules and policies around how we show, what are the specifications? What are the guidelines for you? Like, those are some great things to go through. And then resources. Have we identified the necessary human, financial, and technical resources in that move? Because sometimes I think we feel like, and we create a lose-win for ourselves, because we feel like we have to be everything to everybody. So, Mr. Seller, let's make sure that we talk about the correct resources. So my job is to sell your house with the terms and conditions that satisfy you. In doing that, we are going to bring other professionals in. So I know that we've talked about a stager. I can make some recommendations, and these are some things that have been successful. We need to go ahead and talk with your financial person, right? This is somebody that I'm going to recommend for these. Now, I'm making recommendations, but you need to call them, or you need to do this, right? So again, are we sharing those resources, and yet in such a manner that we're not taking on a lose-win, right? And then accountability. Have identified what will be reported. So we're going to communicate with you once a week to let you know what's going on with the property. This is how you will receive that. Does that work for you? That type of thing. And then consequences. So when we both do this, the house will sell. And yet if we go in here and we're not having the right amount of showings, we are going to do a price reduction within the next, 10 showings and no offer. We're going to do a price reduction to this percentage, because the consequence otherwise means that you have to stay here and you don't get to Spokane, Washington like you would want. So it's so interesting how this covers personal, business, and it's all about going back and making sure we're creating that win-win situation, which means we have to be brave. We have to have high courage and high consideration. Yes, ma'am. Sylvia?
Another thing in here, what you just showed is part of habit 5 on the listening side of it, that by doing this, either personal or in a listing presentation, what you're doing is that you're really listening and you're executing. You're saying, I'm listening. Here are the goals that you have. So in order for us to get you there, here is my action plan, right? And you're showing that you're caring and that you're listening. And I mean, it goes to the win-win side.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, I love that. And it's making sure that we have the courage to say, like, they have unrealistic expectations. And I'd love to make that happen for you. And in today's market, let's talk about what is actually possible. That's going to take courage if their price isn't where they want to be or they have unrealistic expectations. So are we going in there with high enough courage to do that, and not in a lose-lose or lose-win, but to consideration? I get that you want that. Man, I wish I could get that for you. And it's my job to let you know this. You would not want, and think about, if we look at a doctor, would we want a doctor that had high consideration and low courage? So we find out we are, I don't know, maybe they discover a lump in our breast and they say, ooh, I didn't really want to tell her the bad news, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Right? That is not, so we have to have, you want the doctor that says, oh, I'm sorry this has happened to you. I'm going to tell you because even though I know you're not going to like to hear it, you need to know it. And I'm going to have high consideration for understanding your feelings and helping you create a plan of action for moving forward. So love this. Okay. So this is why it's so important. We talk about this a lot at Keller Williams, right? But what does it actually mean and how do we show up that way? So I love this particular habit. All right. And then Mon has went ahead and attached that win-win agreement checklist for anybody that would love to grab that piece. All right. So now we're going to pivot from here over to your future from vision to reality. So we started working on this last week, and Mon, I'm going to have you, it's actually in everybody's hub now, and I'm going to show my screen. So you'll want to actually go to your own hub and grab this piece, and it's going to say your reality and your vision. Now, while you guys are pulling that up, I did want to share something. I know that we've been individually going over this on some of the calls, with our individual coaching, and yet I wanted to make sure that we're still touching base on this here because maybe we have additional time to get further into it, or you can just, have some time to continue to work on it, because the faster we get this complete, the better, so that we're working on that 12-week, right? 12 weeks, and where do we need to be? So months ago, when we started doing these weekly calls, this week was designed where we were going to actually walk through the 411. We're not going to walk through the 411. We're going to walk through the 12-week action plan instead. Now, interesting enough, they work like, Jesse, these work hand in hand. And so if you're utilizing the 411 at a high level, you can continue utilizing that. Maybe you have struggled with the 411 and you want to use this. Either way, it's okay. It's just a new option, if that makes sense. Because even the 12-week action plan, so if you'll come over to the bottom and you're going to click on the sample 12-week action plan, or you can look at the sample on my page, and then you can maybe type in yours if you're that far along. But we've got your 12-week 7-circle goals that came from page 1. And then we've got your, these goals are taken from your GPS, right? So this is that sample GPS. And we went over GPS a while ago. I think that was the week right before Thanksgiving. We did a call on what a GPS is and that type of thing. So we're going to say, okay, we've got our GPS for the next 12 weeks. And we're going to come in here and we're going to go, okay, and we're going to use this example. So if our goal is to take 8 listings in the next 12 weeks, what are the things that I'm going to do this week to support that? And so today's Thursday, we would be planning next week, right? And this is planning out the next 12 weeks. And we would say, okay, well, in this example, they said, I'm going to launch the social media campaign targeting 2 hours of lead generation for 5 days a week. I'm going to door knock 50 homes. I'm going to register for Bold. I'm going to do 1 hour of lead follow-up 5 days a week. So Sylvia, yours might be, I'm going to go talk to a builder, or I'm going to print, like whatever that is, but you want to create your own. This part is very like the 411 in the sense of we go, okay, what are the 3 to 5 action items I'm going to do this week that's going to move me closer to my month goal? Only now we're saying this is going to move me toward my 12-week goal, right? Then you're going to go, okay, well, in my goal 2, theirs was to hire an executive admin. Well, what do I need to do this week to move me forward on that executive admin piece? Launch a social media campaign targeting admins, send the email to the database with missing persons. And then we ask ourselves, goal 3, and I am going to ask when you do your GPS, we want to look at that balanced life. So I am going to ask that your 3rd goal is personal. Okay, this goes right back to what with reading the book for 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We want to make sure we're sharpening the saw, right? That's where we take care of ourselves. So what is your goal 3? In this example, it was to get rid of 10 pounds. So what are we going to do this week? There's thousands of things we can do. What are we going to do this week? And they came up with limit calorie intake to 2,000 calories, do 20 minutes of cardio a minimum 6 days a week, drink a gallon of water 6 days a week, and do week 1 of the 6-week training gap. Okay. So that's what that's going to look like. Now you'll notice that they have other weeks done. That's just for example. You're going to do 1 week at a time. Now, the cool part from here, what you'll see is every time you add something here, it's going to tell you how many points that is. So there's 5 things, and every time you do something and you get that done, so you go, you know what, 5 days a week, I did 1 hour of lead generation. We mark that done. And see how over here, your score went up to 6. So your scores, you're now at a 54% for the week. And let's say that you also did this one. Now it's going to jump up. You're at 63%. I launched this. Right. Ooh, I don't know what I just, okay. I launched this and, or let's say I did do this one. And now I'm at a 72% score. Now, the really cool part, and I definitely want to take some questions and hear what you guys are saying. And I'm going to probably give you a little bit of time to just create yours, especially if you have your GPS done. If you don't, you can take the time to actually create your GPS. The cool part is we're not looking, yes, 100% is great, right? We love 100. Anything, if we are choosing the right activities, typically anything over 80%, we're moving the business forward, right? Because it's not about perfection. It is relentless progress, right? And so, and with the 12-week year, if we can mess up in 2 weeks out of the 12 weeks and still move our business forward. That's the cool part. And you get to see those percentages. So I don't want us to get caught up with, it's got to be 100%. Yes, sometimes will we be? Absolutely. Do we want to strive to be? And yet it's kind of you're going to use your EQ in here as well. So it's kind of like, I'll use running as an example. I might go on a run, and today my intent is to do a 9-minute mile, or to average a 9-minute mile. And yet for whatever reason, whether it's the weather or I feel I go out there and do it, I just can't ever hit the time. I still got the run, and it's okay like that. And then the other piece that I would mention is we want to make sure here that we have lead measures, not lag measures. And what I mean by that is, let's say that our goal was to, we'll take 8 listings. Go, sign 2 listing agreements. That would be like me saying I want to get rid of 10 pounds, and and having an action item of weigh 124. Well, that's what happens after I do the work, right? So that's the difference between the lead and lag measure. So what are the activities that are going to cause us to take the 2 listings? Because it's all those other things that we do that causes that to happen. So I want to pause real quick and I want to hear from you guys. What are you hearing? What do you like? What are you getting stuck on? Who wants to go first?
Happy to go first. From vision to reality, are we talking about the 12? I have not started the 12-week action plan. And is this a substitute of our daily scoreboard?
Okay, that's a great question. It's not.
It's not, right?
Yeah, because that's our tracker. Yeah, that's the tracker. That's where we're going. You know, I had a goal of this many contacts, because we're going to be able to track that over the weeks and the months and say, okay, I've been hitting 100 contacts. I've got this many appointments. Goodness, for every 20 contacts, I get an appointment. So we're still doing the daily tracker. This is more about planning. So for instance, how do we know what our priority is for next week? If we're not really clear on what our priorities next week that's going to move the business forward, then we may end up getting caught up into other people's priorities. That's what this is. This is, we go, okay, if this is our business goal, what do we need to do next week to be on pace? We need to do this. Well, something comes up and distracts us, or somebody, we have a deal that's not going to close. So we spend 20 hours on that deal and we don't lead generate. Well, guess what? Now we potentially don't have that deal and any other deals. So this makes sure that we go, yes, and what do I have to move, get rid of, so that this piece happens? This is about planning or prioritizing that week. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So then you're going, okay, so these are the things that I got to do. Now let me put these in my calendar. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts around this piece?
I do. I think that it's, with all 7 of those categories, it's been hard to hone in on the 3 most important.
Okay, awesome. So that's a great piece. So we're going to go back, because Sylvia also mentioned that when we looked at where these come from. So if we go back to the very first page, I think this will answer what you're looking at, Brittany. So we're going to rate, right, where we are with physical health, personal life, key relationships. And we're going to say where we are today, what do we want our life to look like? And then we're going to rate them according to priority. Okay. So, and then you want to go, which ones of these are we going to work on in the next 12 weeks? Not all of them. Will that help, Brittany?
Yes, but I still it's hard to just focus on 3 things when they have so many other things that you really do want to work on also. So I guess it reminds me of when we do the 411 and that 80% down at the bottom. I guess you fill in that area, and then it's really that those key things are what's filled in at the top.
Yes, absolutely. Because it is, and Gary even shares this, right? When we think about the one thing, well, it's not because we only have one thing to do. This is the lead domino, right? So yes, this is the lead domino. So if you think about, so this might be where you start, but what's the most important, or what's the lead domino? So for instance, let's say that you come through and you rate these pieces, and you said, you know what, for me, whenever, and because this is a lot of people, we tend to, we don't realize how much not being healthy impacts our world. And so maybe, let's say, because for me, that's a high priority. So I said, okay, that's a priority for me. Obviously we're doing this in business, so that's a priority. for me. And again, we go through here. Then from here, what do I want this to look like? Throughout this year, you're going to work on all of these pieces. But what we want to break down is which ones are we going to work on in the next 12 weeks. Then from here, you're going to, so for instance, let's say spiritual, let's say you already practice mindfulness, or you are already reading your scripture, or whatever that means for you, spiritual. You keep doing that thing. You don't drop it. You keep doing that. But let's say that's not one of the priorities for this 12 weeks. You're not going to bring anything in addition on top of that, of what you're already doing. Is that getting any clearer, Brittany?
Yes. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. What is the difference then with the job and the business?
So the job is what I'm actually doing on a day-to-day. So
Okay.
I've got to take a listing. I've got to practice my scripts and dialogues. Your business is maybe the financials. So do I have my P&L? Do I have my monies? Now, so let me share one thing that I'm actually going to suggest before filling this out, or in the middle of filling this out, is if you go to these number 46, thought-provoking questions in the open source. Use these. Now, you don't have to answer every one of these questions, but this can kind of give you a base of how you might rate this. So you could ask yourself, what does an extraordinary spiritual life look to me? How do I prioritize? How healthy do I feel? What rituals would I like to facilitate with me being present in my life? You can go through with physical health, personal life, key relationships. Now, the job, if you look at this, how do I like my job? That's my day-to-day. What value do I bring to my job? Do I earn enough income? What would be enough? Does my income reflect the work I bring to my job? How is my commute? Do I have personal job aspirations that I want to pursue this year? Business, how is the business doing financially? Are there things that I wish I could change about how we do business? I wish we had more systems, or I wish we had a better, I was able to spend more time with my clients, or, outside of the transactions. What about the company's core values align with my own? And I would say in this situation, right, you have Keller Williams core values, or you might look at your business core values. Which values of the company conflict with my own? How do I respect, what do I respect about the leadership within my organization? You are the leadership in your organization, Brittany. What do you like about how you're leading? What do you see as a whole? How is the business considerate of the environment? How does the business treat their employees? Will this person I become in 5 years be proud to work for this company? Your company, right? Now, not all of those exactly apply, but those are just some questions that kind of jog your mindset when you're thinking business versus job, or finances, things like that.
Okay, that's good, because I kind of was lumping those together. So I think that's good to have those questions so I can separate it.
Yeah, perfect. And then also remember, this is the first time we're doing this. There is no right or wrong. We're just diving in. We're gonna do it. And this is one of those things, is a lot of it is just that experiential type of piece, right? And then from here, when you're gonna identify, you've prioritized the order of importance, and you're gonna ask yourself, what's the lead domino? From there, then you create that GPS. This is my 1-year goal. Well, if that's my 1-year goal, what do I need to do in 12? What's my 12-week goal to move me there? Okay. And then my priorities. And you have that sample right here. It might not look anything like that. That's just a sample for you to go, okay. this can kind of get me started. And then you'll notice right here on that 12-week action plan, the priority 1 goes right over there, priority 2 right over there, priority 3 goes right over there.
But this is the GPS. The other one is the 12-week plan.
So yes, the GPS gets you to the 12-week plan. Because if I say, this is my goal for the next 12 weeks, then I have to ask myself, well, what do I need to do this week? Because so again, I always think back to, and Brittany and Jesse works out, he's on here as well, but Brittany and Sylvia, you both are runners. So you're going to get this. So if I said I want to run a half marathon in 12 weeks, I'm not going to do the same thing this week that I'm going to do with 12 weeks. It's a progression, right? So that's where the 12-week comes into, because to get that 8 weeks, what do I need to do this week? Well, this week, I'm going to go through my pipeline. And just like, this could be an example of, I'm going to go through my pipeline and identify how many 10s that I have. I'm going to lead generate to find this many 10s. And I'm going to work on, I've got a lot of buyers. I'm going to work on attracting listings for my buyers. Well, because we're making and then let's say we're lead generating every day, week 3 or 4 is probably going to look different than week 1, because it's that progression approach. So the GPS, all it does is it helps us break down what is it that we want to happen in 12 weeks. And then it kind of goes back to what, Brittany, what you said. There's a lot of things that we want to do in the next 12 weeks. Which one's the lead domino? Okay, that's what I'm going to do this week. That's going to go into my 12-week action plan. Okay, based on how I did that, what am I, then at the end of the week when I'm planning my next week, I'm going to go, okay, based on that and where I'm at, what do I need to do next week? So think of this as the big plan for 12 weeks. And then I'm going to say, so like for instance is launch the social media campaign targeting listings. What am I going to do this week? Because launch social media campaigns kind of a big thing. So what am I going to do this week toward that? Maybe I'm going to go find one that somebody's already doing. Maybe I'm going to create it so that all I have to do is press send next week, that type of thing. So talk with me guys about what you're seeing or what you're getting, or where, and maybe even where you're still stuck.
For me, I don't think or maybe it is being stuck, but exactly what Brittany said too, right? There's so many things that need to be done, right? And every week it's not the same every week, but there's so many things that we need to do and not enough time a lot of times, right? That what helps me do with the 12-week action plan, or just writing down it in my calendar, it allows me to stress, but in a different level, right? Knowing that I have to do what I write in there, and knowing that I've done it, or that if I haven't done it because something else came up, then I have to do it another time. It does help me, but every week definitely is a challenge.
Well, and absolutely. And every week we want to go into the week going, what's the priority for this week? That's what this is going to help you do, because lots of times we get a lot of things thrown at us. I'll use an example of anything from classes to attend to, or people wanting you to go here or go to this open house, or all of these things, right? We have all of these things coming at us. And so being able at the beginning of the 12-week period to say, okay, these are the things that's going to cause me to win for this 12 weeks. Okay, what do I need to focus on this week that's going to move me toward my 12-week goal? Whenever something and then you put this on your calendar. And like you said, when something comes up, going back to your calendar and going, yeah, that would be kind of nice to do or fun to do, but it's not going to move my business forward. It's not more important than my priority. So I'm going to say no to that thing. Or I'm going to, you know what I mean? I'm going to move that thing. Or, okay, I do need to put that, where am I going to, like you said, I'm going to shift this. So some of it is us getting really, really good. And I think that's what you're going to start seeing over the next 12 weeks is what we're prioritizing, what we're saying yes to, because I think Gary says something like for every yes, we should be giving 1,000 no's. So what are we saying no to so that we can make these things happen? Okay. Okay, so if we kind of step this through, so what I'd love to see happen is everybody come to your individual coaching call next week with this page, your reality and your vision filled out. Not worried about being right or wrong, just have it complete. And your GPS. We just start with those pieces. So for instance, then from there, we will be able to together, especially at first, start helping you break down what do we need to do in each of those goal categories that week. And then, and then all you've got to do from there is to go, did I do it or not? And that's going to give us our score. And then at the end of the week, right, based on that, what do we need to do? So that's going to be my recommendation is just take it and piecemeal it. Let's get part 1 and our GPS done this week, because you already have all the information you need for your GPS from your business plan. But just do those 2 pieces, and then we'll review that on our individual call next week. And then from there, we can start creating that 1-week plan. Does that sound like a plan? All right, awesome. Brittany, Jesse?
Sounds good.
I wasn't on the last call, so this is all new to me. So I'm just taking it in.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that's where we'll wrap up. I would love to hear. I guess let me hear maybe if everybody, as we wrap up, either share one aha or one thing that you're going to do, before we meet again, or what you learned from today's call, something like that. Let's just go through really quick, and then that's how we'll end today's call.
Do you want me to start?
Absolutely.
All right. I like this this page that's up, your reality and your vision, because it gives me a little, as I look through these, even though, it's hard to figure out what's the priority, it does kind of help highlight those things that are the things that are the most important. And then hopefully from that, I can create the 12-week. Yes. And that it will domino where it will help me in other areas though too.
Perfect. Awesome. Love that. All right. Who's next?
I'm going to go through thought-provoking questions because, like the ladies said, I've got things going on in all 7 areas of life, and which ones are going to be the priorities.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so often so often we don't pay attention to anything except for our business or anything except for our personal or anything except for, and we get that we're all out of balance. So I love that piece, Jesse. Okay, awesome. All right, and Sylvia?
Finish up my GPS finish it, and many other items that I have to. And I did read the 12-week year, and I love the book. But this is a good start to be able to apply the book to my business and life.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and one of the things that my intent is with that 12-week year book, I think it goes hand in hand with a lot of what we're doing here. So probably in January, for anybody that wants to, we'll do like a book club around that book. And yet we'll revisit that once we finish with the 7 habits. So, all right. And then Maddie, this is your first time on, so welcome. And Mon, is there anything that you would add before we wrap?
I think that will be all for me. We don't have any questions in our chat box.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, you guys have an amazing rest of your Thursday. I'll actually be talking to you, Jesse, in just a little bit. And then we will, have a amazing rest of your Thursday and weekend, and we'll talk next week.